Dear viewers, good morning, and I do believe you people are very fine. If so, I'm so happy, and please welcome to our science lesson today. And we are still continuing with our topic, the blood circulatory system, our competence, blood circulatory system. Now, last time we looked at components of blood. Now, this time today, I want us to rush and we discuss the blood vessels. Remember, components of the blood circulatory system include blood itself, the heart, and the blood vessels. So today, I want us to focus on the blood vessels, so we understand this. After which, we'll discuss about the human heart, which is the last component in our topic. So please join me, and I want you to be very attentive from the beginning to the end of the lesson. Now, beginning with our discussion, let us look at the meaning of the word blood vessels. What are blood vessels? What are blood vessels? Now, I told you, blood has to be transported. Blood has to be carried from different parts from the heart. Usually the heart pumps blood, so blood has to be carried from the heart to different parts of the body, including organs and tissues. Organs require a constant supply of blood for them to function properly, because blood carries with it oxygen gas, carbon dioxide gas, food nutrients, hormones, and other important materials. And therefore, blood is transported or carried through special vessels, special tubes, which are called blood vessels. So what are the blood vessels? Blood vessels, by definition, the meaning, definition, these are tubes. These are tubes through which blood flows. These are the tubes through which blood flows. And so, if these tubes allow the flow of blood, then they are really very, very special. So they are tubes which allow blood to flow in them from either the tissue to the tissue, or the tissues to the organs, or the organ to the organ. So the flow of blood there requires a way, a path. And so this path is what we call the blood vessels. So the meaning of blood vessels, meaning of blood vessels. What are blood vessels? Meaning or definition. Meaning of blood vessels. Very, very important. So blood vessels, these are tubes. Blood vessels are tubes through which blood vessels, the tubes. These are the tubes. You have to write this in your exercise book, through which, and I hope you can see, through which blood flows from tissues to tissues, or tissues to organs. From tissues to tissue, either from tissues to tissues, or to organs. That is, either from tissues to tissues, one tissue to the other tissue, or from the tissue to the organ. Now, you don't have to forget the meaning of the word tissue. We said that tissue is a group of cells that perform the same function. So a group of cells performing the same function is a tissue, and that is why blood is a tissue, a liquid tissue, because blood has got cells, the blood cells. We know them, white blood cells, red blood cells, thrombocytes. These are the cells that make blood as a tissue. Now, tissue to tissues or tissues to organs. So you don't have to forget the meaning of blood vessels. These are the tubes through which blood flows from tissue to tissues or tissues to organs or organs to organs. So in order for blood to flow properly, there must be specific parts that allow blood to flow. Now, to understand more, I'll make a simple drawing. Suppose these are the tubes, as I said in the beginning. A tube like this one here. Please observe carefully so you can understand. These are the tubes. Now, such kind of drawing is a simple illustration of a blood vessel, a tube. Now, as you can see, this is an open part whereby blood flows, and therefore, if the direction of blood is towards the right, like this one here, it means therefore blood flows at a certain speed from this end, particular end, inside the tube to the other part. Now these tubes are normally connected to tissues or organs. These are the tubes. So a tube is normally elastic. It can increase and decrease. So these are the tubes. Very, very important. Now, after having looked at the meaning of blood vessels, we go to the types of blood vessels. We have 3 types of blood vessels. There are 3 types of blood vessels. There are 3 main types of blood vessels. 3 should be underlined. There are 3 main types of blood vessels. Yes, so we do have 3 of them. 3 main types of blood vessels. Now, what are they? What are these 3 types of blood vessels? Number 1, we have the so-called veins. So veins, this is plural. A vein is a singular. Veins, this is the first type of blood vessels, and we're going to discuss the details and see what are the veins and what do they do. And finally, we shall look at problems of the blood circulatory system. But then, the second type of blood vessels is known as the arteries. So we have arteries, singular and artery. So one of them is an artery, many arteries. You don't have to forget this. One of them is an artery, and then many of them are arteries. That is the second blood vessel. The third blood vessel is the capillaries. So the 3 main types of blood vessels are the veins, the arteries, the capillaries. Very, very important. So these are the special tubes inside the human body which have the function to carry blood. So blood flows in them or through them that way, as I told you. Now let us start discussing each of the blood vessels separately. Now, to begin with, let us look at the veins. What are these veins, and what are the characteristics of the veins? What do they do in the body? Veins. Okay, veins. Veins, these are blood vessels that carry blood towards the heart. So if this is the heart, just a simple illustration, not the real heart. If this is the heart, what veins do is they carry blood towards the heart, and the arrow shows that blood goes towards the heart. In this is the direction of blood. So veins carry blood towards the heart. This is very, very important. So veins. The first point about veins is these are blood vessels that carry blood towards the heart. Very, very important. These are blood vessels. These are blood vessels that carry blood towards the heart. That carry blood carry blood towards the heart. Towards. Now, towards means in the direction, to the direction of the heart. Towards the heart. That is very, very important to remember. Blood vessels that carry blood towards the heart. As I illustrated here, so from different parts of the body, blood has to go to the heart. Why? Blood passes to the heart for it to be pumped. Remember, I told you, the main function of the human heart is to pump blood. And the heart is not such a big structure. We'll discuss about it. So the size of the heart is just the size of your fist. When you fold your fingers, you are like this. This is the size of your heart. You can also fold your fist, your own fist, and that gives an approximate size of your heart. Now, so blood has to go to the heart for it to be pumped. No any other function. No cleaning, no filtering, for it to be pumped. So the heart is the pumping organ of the body. Now, another very, very important point to remember about veins is they carry deoxygenated blood. So the veins carry through them deoxygenated blood. Remember I told you the meaning of deoxygenated blood, that is blood which does not have oxygen. It has carbon dioxide rather. So this is deoxygenated blood towards the heart. Now, all veins, another point to remember, all veins carry deoxygenated blood. Deoxygenated blood. So the veins have the function to transport or to carry deoxygenated blood. Deoxygenated blood. This is important. Now, not all veins, however, not all veins, very, very important point, not all veins carry deoxygenated blood. There is only one vein that does not carry deoxygenated blood. It carries oxygenated blood. You'll be surprised, you'll be wondering, but this is the biological scientific fact. There's only one vein that carries oxygenated blood. It doesn't carry deoxygenated blood, which is known as, so we say all veins carry deoxygenated blood, except, with only one exception, except the pulmonary vein. Pulmonary vein. Except the pulmonary vein. Now, the pulmonary vein carries oxygenated blood, but all other veins in the body carry deoxygenated blood, except for one, which is known as the pulmonary vein. Of course, the word pulmonary is connected with the lungs. So lungs, the lung vein, vein of the lung, supplies blood from the heart to the, from the lungs to the heart. The pulmonary vein, very important. So the pulmonary vein is also known as the lung vein. So this is a point to remember. Pulmonary vein is also known as, is also called the lung vein. Is also called lung vein. Now this point is very, very important. Very, very important. That all veins carry deoxygenated blood. Remember, we said deoxygenated blood means blood that contains more carbon dioxide. So it has no oxygen. It is not oxygenated. And the color of deoxygenated blood, we say it is dark red. Dark red. Deoxygenated blood. So except the pulmonary vein. Excuse me, pulmonary vein. This is not seen properly in case of copying or it is also known as the pulmonary, the lung vein. That is it. Another point to do with the veins is, unlike the arteries, the veins have got structures known as valves. Valve. I hope the term valve is not very new. They have valves. Veins have valves. I'll tell you the function of valves. They have valves. Arteries do not have valves, but the veins do. The veins do. They do have valves. Now, a valve actually is a flap, is a structure that has the function to prevent blood from flowing either backwards or in the wrong direction. Well, so if this is the direction of blood flowing, so it means blood has to go towards this direction. However, if there was any possibility of blood flowing back, which is not good at all, which is not supposed to be this way, then if blood flows backwards, that will be a problem. Now there are special structures called valves. I'll show the valves in our drawings. The valves. So the main function of valves is to prevent blood from flowing back. Blood has to go to one direction. That is one. Two, of course, it is the same to prevent blood from flowing backwards or in a wrong direction. Wrong direction. It has to take a correct direction and not a wrong direction. So these are the valves. Perhaps I put this point for you to take it. I was saying the main function of valves. The main function of valves is to prevent blood from flowing backwards. From flowing where? Backwards. Or you say, from flowing in wrong direction. Backwards or in wrong direction. In a wrong direction. Now, the direction of blood should be the same. If it flows upwards, the direction should be maintained. Because if the direction is otherwise, there can be problems in the blood circulatory system, of which we don't expect. So the veins are therefore equipped with the structures known as valves. This point is very, very important to be remembered. Very important. Now the other very, very important point, I would say a characteristic of the veins is they carry blood with low pressure. They carry blood with low pressure. Carry blood with low pressure. With low pressure. Meaning that blood flowing through the veins does not take high speed, low pressure. The pressure is low. It doesn't move fast. The blood doesn't go fast. It doesn't move fast, it goes slowly. Very important point. Now, another point to do with the veins is they have thin walls. They have thin walls. Thin walls compared to the arteries. They have thin walls. This is another important point to note. Unlike the arteries, which have got thick walls. Then, after having discussed about arteries, we'll be able to see the differences between the two. Have thin walls. Now, our veins are found on the upper, found on the surface. On the surface. They are actually found on the surface. Most of the veins are seen on the surface of the skin. Surface of the skin. And this does not mean outside, no. On the surface of the skin. Making them visible, easily visible. Making them visible by naked eyes. Making them visible by naked eyes. Visible by naked eyes. You don't need a microscope to see them. You agree with me that sometimes during the hot weather, If you put your hand like this, you will see the blood vessels. They are seen clearly. You see them. They are visible because they are found on the upper part of the skin. Unlike the arteries which are found on the underneath of the skin, so they're not easily visible. And a point to note is a doctor or a nurse who would like to take your blood sample really can sometimes take it from the veins. They normally take from the veins because veins are found on the surface, unlike the arteries. But the second reason why they take blood from the veins is their blood flows with low pressure. And so when a vein is pierced, when an injection is put in a vein, then we don't expect blood to flow out into sparks, at high speed, very low speed. So veins are suitable for blood sample. Now, last point to make about the veins is the main vein. The main vein, or the largest of all the veins, the main vein is called vena cava. Very, very important. The main vein is called vena cava. Vena cava is the main vena cava. This is the main vein. Very important point. And I really wanted us to learn the veins, and so we understand them better. In our next lesson, we'll do the arteries and the capillaries, and also we'll look at the differences between arteries and veins. After having said so, I thank you so much for paying attention from the beginning of this lesson to the end. And so, have a better day. Don't miss the next lesson. Thank you.